Well, Huawei, the Chinese company at the heart of US-China trade tensions, flew in the face of a US blockade with the launch of two new top-spec phones in London.
Thank you.
The man on the stage, George Zhao, president of the Honor brand, told the audience he was really happy to see so many friends. For him and his firm, there's no escaping the events of the past week. The US added the company to a trade blacklist, preventing American firms from selling tech to Huawei. Then Google said it would stop support for Android and related Google services. Like more than 85% of the world's smartphones, Huawei devices use Google's Android system. But Huawei made no reference to Google while launching the new phones, the Honor 20 and Honor 20 Pro, which will still come with Android. A spokesperson said Google certified the phones prior to the restrictions. The phones will be released outside of the US, and you can see on your screens that's just how much they will set you back. This Honor brand is a big deal for Huawei, having posted 50% growth this month, and analysts say being cut off from a Google ecosystem would make its phones a lot less attractive to global buyers. And here's why. Huawei sales outside of China make up half of its shipments, but you can see almost half of its sales come from outside China, and that the firm has a sizable presence in Europe, Russia, Mexico, and even Saudi Arabia. Huawei ships more smartphones globally than Apple, and its high-end features and relatively cheap price tags make it attractive for buyers. And Huawei had actually predicted it would overtake South Korea's Samsung by 2020. In terms of Huawei's global market share, here's how things stack up. 17% for Huawei, behind Samsung's 21%, and ahead of Apple on 12%. And this is according to research firm Counterpoint. But the Trump administration is now threatening that kind of dominance. Bloomberg reports the US is trying to build more support in its fight against Huawei. It cited a government official as saying that European nations may be coming around on possible threats posed by the Chinese company. And the official said European countries may not impose an outright legal ban on Huawei, but they may effectively bar its gear from their 5G networks. The US alleges China could use Huawei equipment for spying, and these are charges the company denies. Bloomberg also says the US plan to target Huawei had been on the table for months, but it was held off over fears that it could disrupt trade talks with China. Let's back up a bit to how Huawei got here in the first place. The firm has had a tenuous relationship with the US for a decade now over alleged ties to Iran, over alleged intellectual property theft, and now over the battle for the future of technology over 5G. But things really heated up sometime in March. In early March, Huawei sued the US government over a ban that restricted federal agencies from using its products. And that same month, Huawei told a German paper it was developing its own operating systems in case it was banned from using Google's Android and Microsoft's Windows.
Pushing Huawei out from using US products and US manufacturers is going to force them to develop something of their own. They're already in the cheap phone market, and so this is going to actually make it probably better for them that they have something in-house that could work.
Pressure mounted when a UK government report said Huawei could pose security risks to the British telecom industry. But notwithstanding those concerns, soon the UK said it would let Huawei build selected parts of its 5G infrastructure. Then came an explosive report. Vodafone said it uncovered what it called hidden backdoors in Huawei's equipment. It said that would have allowed Huawei to access users' home networks, something the company denied. Things reached a boiling point last week when the US put Huawei on a trade blacklist, which led Google to restrict Huawei's access to future updates. And those restrictions were eased up a bit later, allowing American firms to keep sending software updates to Huawei for 3 months. The company founder and CEO has dismissed any significant impact that this row may have and said the US was underestimating Huawei's abilities.
说这一次虽然有我们这个清单呢，那我们自己本公司内是不受影响，但是美国是一个法治国家，美国企业不能不遵守法律，所以因此，它在这个实体经呢，它要遵守实体法律。我说媒体在报道过程中呢，应该深深的理解企业和我们之间是同呼吸共命运的。
In Singapore, experts do not expect major short-term problems for Huawei when it comes to their smartphones, despite Google's move to ban the devices from using its Android operating system. But they flagged potential long-term issues in security and operating systems, for example. Faris Juraimi explores.
Months ago, people were raving about the P30, Huawei's crown jewel. Despite a zoom capability of up to 50 times, it couldn't see what was about to unfold. Uncertainty now looms for the Chinese tech giant, with the company on the Trump administration's blacklist. Experts don't expect immediate issues, as Google says the ban will not affect existing devices. Users will still be able to access the Google Play Store and update apps, but there might be future issues, like in security.
The idea we seem to get is that Google will stop providing patches for security, for example, to the Android operating system for the phone. So all the Huawei phones will become vulnerable. But then again, we believe that Huawei will be researching and building their own security patches to allow the users to download and continue to be safe.
And when it comes to OS compatibility,
the latest, newest Android phones from next year onwards might be running a different operating system or might be running a forked version of Android, depending on what happens. So that may actually affect the consumer's choice, whether they want to choose this phone or they want to choose other phones instead with a tried, tested, and well-known operating system compared to maybe the new operating system that Huawei might be using.
Maybe if Huawei have their own app store, then maybe that's okay.
Actually, I'm using a Huawei phone right now, so I think by the time I can always switch to other phone manufacturers.
I went into a few mobile phone outlets selling Huawei phones and asked the salespersons there if they've received questions on the Google ban. At Singtel and M1, they said they haven't received much queries. They also said that there isn't any problems with Huawei phones. At StarHub, it's more or less the same story. However, their salesperson told me that I should purchase phones of other brands instead. And when I went into Huawei, I was told that I would receive a 2-year warranty with every phone purchase. However, their salesperson couldn't tell me if that guarantees a phone replacement.
CNA reached out to the local telcos, but they did not disclose how many Huawei handsets have been sold.